Ciao, Bella. I am Oceana Fortuna, and this is the Breathe, Love, and Magic podcast. We'll talk about a magical mix of mystical methods, including everything that works to live your best life, grow spiritually, and maybe find love. Open your heart, expand your mind, and connect with spirit to embrace the magic that is all around you. If you enjoy the show, please give it a thumbs up or write a glowing review and subscribe so you'll know when the next episode is available. And may good fortune come to all those who listen to the Breathe, Love, and Magic podcast. And now, on with the show. In today's episode, I'm going to share my method to ask the universe for a sign, which can be a huge help if you have a big decision to make. And I'll also share how I got started in the world of magic and what magic means to me. Last year, I had a major revelation. After I began working with an alchemy coach, I discovered my life had been steeped in magic for years, although I never realized it. I didn't consider that what I was doing to be real magic. But working with this coach, I got a big surprise. Turns out the little songs I've been writing and singing, the meditations I've done, and other rituals are all magic. And I've been using them to manifest and create the life I wanted, but I had no idea. It's just what I did on my own for years. Right now, it seems the world could use a bit more love and magic, don't you think? To lighten up the energy and create a greater sense of mystical fun and empowerment. Knowing there are things you can do to change your life and attract what you want impacts how you live your life. To me, magic encompasses a lot of different things. For example, magic is finding a four-leaf clover or watching a rainbow appear. I'm always awestruck by sunlight breaking through the dark clouds to form these spotlights beaming down onto the land. That's always amazing. Planting seeds and watching seedlings push their little heads above the surface of the dirt, that's pure magic. What else could make plants grow? Later in the season, I talk to the nature spirits and the elementals and the divas, as well as my garden plants themselves, asking, is it okay for me to prune you now or harvest you now? And then I send them love and maybe some Reiki and gratitude from my heart. Magic is also walking through the forest and feeling the cool green fill you with the vibrancy and energy that only happens in the woods. Or sitting by the shore, feeling the fluid and watery peace that seeps into my bones. Witnessing the sunrise or sunset is definitely magical. As the ball of fire dips behind the horizon, how is it that once again it will rise in the morning? What keeps this cycle going so you always know without fail you can count on it? Looking at the night sky, sparkling with stars, and suddenly seeing a shooting star is absolutely magical. Magic is also thinking about a close friend or someone you haven't heard from in a while, and then the phone rings and it's them. Or when someone who has passed on visits you in a dream and gives you the hug you really needed. To me, lighting a candle before I begin any writing project sets the tone for creativity as I call in help from my guides or any higher level spirits who happen to be writers and nearby. Magic is also a deep sense of knowing within your heart and soul that if you are single, you will find love when you clear the path and take action. That's how I found lasting love with my cute husband of 20 years now. The ability to see things in your mind's eye is incredibly magical. Or catching a glimpse of somebody's aura. Or waking up because you hear someone calling your name, but no one is there. Has that ever happened to you? It's happened to me. Magic is your connection to all that is divine. Remembering what magic means to you and harnessing that keeps it alive and fosters its growth. This is why I have created the Breathe Love and Magic podcast to bring more attention to magic so that it can flourish, so that love can flourish, and so that you can flourish too. Please feel free to share how magic plays a role in your life in the comments section. One of the many magical tools I've been using for a long time is for decision making. Sometimes you may be faced with a difficult decision and feel unsure which way to turn. I'm going to describe a simple method to enlist the universe's help. If you struggle with making major decisions and knowing what is for your highest good, this is a great way to go. Normally, I'm very decisive, and usually I have no trouble making the right choice for me rather quickly. However, there are times when my emotions get in the way, and that's when I just can't settle down to get clear. Somehow I get caught up in all the stories and options and don't have the clarity needed to make a proper decision for something that's important. I'm sure that's happened to you too, right? Asking for a sign can be extremely helpful when making big life decisions. That's when you especially want to choose wisely. Here's how I started working with signs. The first time I asked for a sign, I was struggling to decide if I should move to the city where I live now. It was crossing into the next county, and even though it wasn't that far, I'd still be doing more driving. I struggled looking at the pros and cons and making lists, asking friends what they thought. I got so tired of trying to figure out what was in my best interest and my highest good. Then the idea came to me to ask the universe for help by requesting a sign. If it was right for me to move to this new town, I wanted to see bright pink roses within 24 hours. Here are two things about asking for a sign. First, choose what sign you want to see and what it means. In this case, I chose pink roses, and it meant that I should move if I saw them. Don't just ask for a sign and hope to see something because you won't know if you saw a sign or not, or for that matter, what it meant. Being specific is extremely important. The second thing is to set a time frame. If you leave it open-ended, you could deliberate and wonder and keep making that decision over and over again forever, and you won't be able to move forward until you've figured it out. Again, being specific makes the difference in what your sign can do to be helpful and timely. Once I chose my sign and timing, I stopped thinking about it and went about my day. At noon, I got in my car and I drove to pick up my friend Kim for lunch. On the way there, that sunny June day, I saw an avalanche of pink roses spilling over a white picket fence. It was so picturesque. It literally looked like a Martha Stewart magazine cover. The trouble is, they weren't quite the right pink I had in mind. And I had to be 100% sure this was a big decision. While abundant and colorful, those roses were a bit paler than the flowers that I had in mind. So I said out loud, not the right pink, like a defiant child dismissing the remarkable bounty of pink roses presented. Maybe I was a little resistant, right? All right. So, moving on, when I arrived at Kim's building, I parked and walked in to see her. She wasn't quite ready. So, I took a seat in the lobby to wait. Glancing over at the coffee table, I noticed only one magazine. And what was on the cover of that magazine? You guessed it, one giant pink rose, filling the entire cover. I was like, how can this be? It was the exact perfect pink. There was no denying the pink rose. This time around, I knew this meant I was moving. What is so awesome about this decision making method is you can finally let go. Just give it up to the universe, and if you don't see the sign within the time period you've chosen, then you know the answer to your question is no. This is the only way this can work. If you are willing to actually let the universe decide. That means when you see the sign, or if you don't, you honor what happens and you follow that. If you go against it, that's another choice, but it's all on you. In that case, it'll be hard to say if it's for your highest good or for your ego's interest. But you get to decide, of course. That's why when I ask the universe for a sign, I am willing to follow through on the answer. Truth is that this has never failed me yet. Here's another example. I was freelancing for a marketing agency and I had a colleague who had started his own company. I couldn't decide if I should give up freelancing and go in with him. I racked my brain, I tortured my friends, but there just was no clear choice. However, I didn't want to see a real tulip in the ground, but some other way. It was April, so seeing a yellow tulip in some flower bed was too easy. Again, the timing was 24 hours. With this all set, I let it go. Now, the agency I was freelancing for had another office across the street, and for whatever reason, I had never been into the building. But that same day, for some reason, I had to see someone in the other building. As I walked down the hall of the other building to find the person I needed to speak with, I wasn't at all thinking about the decision hanging over my head. And yet, right there on her desk, to my amazement, was a bright yellow neon tulip, lit up, electric. I never saw such a thing. It totally made me laugh, and there was my answer. Brilliant and yellow, shining and electric. I was going to work with my friend and leave this freelancing behind. In hindsight, this was the best possible move because so many good changes came out of the new situation. And even though I only stayed 1 year, it was a completely pivotal period of time in which my life changed dramatically. Turns out working with my friend gave me a safe haven for all that to transpire. There was no way I could have known about these changes beforehand, and I doubt things would have worked out the same had I stayed freelancing at the marketing agency. But the universe knew the best choice for me, and I followed it. This is why I feel such a deep affinity for this type of decision making when a choice is unclear. We can't know everything, especially ahead of time. So relying on spirit, the universe, or magic, whatever you choose to call it, can make the difference and help guide you in the tough choices life presents. My third example of asking for a sign was another big life decision. Back when I was dating my husband for 6 months, I had made the massive error of telling him I loved him first. And he didn't respond. And several months went by, and I felt like an idiot. What a foolish thing I did, sharing my feelings first. It was torture, hoping every day might be the one where he would finally say those important words that every woman longs to hear. At 40, I thought things would move along. But that was not the case. I wanted to marry, so I decided the only thing to do was break up with him because I wanted a man who could tell me he loved me. This was the hardest decision I ever made, and it was so awful, so heartbreaking to leave the man I love, but that is what I did because I was focused on finding the man who would be ready and willing to marry me. The day after we broke up, he called me and asked if I was going to just throw away everything we had just like that. I said, as soon as you can tell me you love me, we'll get back together. Otherwise, I have to move on. But he still didn't say it. Ultimatums are hard. He did make his case, though, and I was moved that he really fought for our relationship. And because of that, I suggested we take 2 weeks to think about things and then get together to talk about it. I had to travel for business, and then I was going to visit my parents in Florida, and he agreed to this. Before I left on my trip, which was in February, I decided once again to ask the universe to show me a sign. I chose a bluebird as the sign, stated it couldn't be a blue jay. That would be too easy living in the Northeast in the winter. And I then set the timing as before my return home in 2 weeks. On the last day of visiting my parents, I had already done my business trip. I had already visited my parents for a while. Here I am on the very last day. I look out the window of their kitchen and saw an enormous gray bird in the backyard. It looked like it was 3 feet tall and was so stately. I asked my dad what kind of bird that was, and he told me it was a blue heron. Even though the bird wasn't blue in color, it still was called a blue bird. And I decided to give my husband 3 more months to see if he would come around. My father suggested that timing. He said, give the guy 3 months. What's it going to do to change your life? And that felt like the right thing to do. So that was the end of February by the time I got back, which made the new time limit for him to tell me he loved me the Monday of Memorial Day weekend. This was my secret. I didn't tell him. I didn't pressure him any further. I just knew in my head, in my heart, that either he said it by Memorial Day weekend or I had to move on. Let's fast forward. There I was Monday of Memorial Day weekend, and although he didn't know it, the clock was ticking down on our relationship really fast. The grains of time, the grains of sand in that hourglass were flowing fast. And as far as I was concerned, that was my big boundary, my big time limit. He'd been given a fair chance, another 3 months, and it didn't look good. He still hadn't told me he loved me. Then, as the clock struck 6, I kid you not, he finally told me he loved me. He came over to where I was sitting on the love seat and he said, I love you. It was like magic, as if he knew that that hourglass was just about empty and he had run out of time on our relationship. He waited to the last possible moment without consciously knowing a timer had been set. Of course, I was completely and utterly thrilled and greatly surprised. He managed to make it, by the last second. Amazing. And again, pretty magical. Once he opened up to say he loved me, it was like freeing a river from a giant log jam. He started saying it all the time and many times a day. I had to laugh. A few weeks later, I did tell him how he delivered his words of love and saved our relationship by the very skin of his teeth. And we both had a good laugh. The universe can be your partner when it comes to your big life choices. Rely on this magic if you don't know which way to turn or just can't seem to decide. I will also tell you that there have been times when I never saw a sign that I asked for. One time I wanted to complain to my neighbors about their dog because she was always pooping in our yard, and I was tired of it. But I had this really eerie feeling this was not such a good idea. Normally, I speak up and I address things, but our driveways practically touch. Our homes are really close together. And if we ended up in a fight, not speaking to them would be really seriously awkward. So I asked the universe to create an opening in our conversation if it was the right thing to do to bring this up. I selected a whole week for this to happen. And as it turned out, it never did. There was no natural opening for me to bring this up. So I realized it must not be the right thing to do. It was very hard for me not to say something since that's my normal way. However, as it turned out, their dog was quite old and she passed away a short time after. I certainly didn't wish for that or for my neighbors to lose their dog, but it's just what naturally happened. Now, this is the interesting part. When they got a new dog, they completely changed their ways with how they interacted with the dog. They always kept it on a leash versus letting it run free. This would have been too difficult to start using a leash with the old dog. But thankfully, I hung in there and the problem resolved itself when they got a new dog without me needing to say a single word. And that was quite a relief all the way around. Okay, so if you want to try this bit of magic for yourself, here's how to ask for a sign. Number 1, state your yes or no question that you want answered. Whatever you are weighing out, put that into the yes no format because that is the only kind of answer you can get. There will be no explanation. That is a different kind of magical process. This is strictly about a yes or no question. Number 2, select the sign you want to see. Be specific about the color, the size, or any other important details. Number 3, choose the timing. When do you want to see the sign? Set a limit. Number 4, be patient and wait for it until the time you have set expires. Remember, you may see your sign within a short time, or it can take the entire length of time you set. My advice is don't set long time periods like 2 weeks, like I did. It feels like torture. Make it a short time period. My favorite ones have been the 24 hours. Number 5, follow the message you get, even if you get nothing, which means the answer is no, don't do it. There you go. That is the magic of asking for a sign. And now you know one of the things I use magically in my life that has really delivered and worked for me. Thanks for listening today. Don't forget to like this episode if you enjoyed it, write a positive review if you feel inspired, and subscribe so you never miss an episode. I'll have more about love and magic next time. Until then, this is Oceana Fortuna reminding you to share your love and seek magic every day.